What's the story, Morning Glory? What's the word, Hummingbird? Thank you so much for clicking on my channel and for joining me for this review of Married at First Sight, Season 19, Episode 8, Anniversary Adventures. So this is the episode where the couple celebrate their 1-month anniversary. So let's get into Jaylen and Josh. So Josh's gift to Jaylen for their 1-month anniversary is to go skydiving. And Jaylen tells us that this is what she had wanted in a partner, someone to push her out of her comfort zone and to test her boundaries. Now, Josh is a little bit more adventurous than Jaylen because Jaylen said that she would normally like to celebrate an anniversary. It would have been something really simple like stay home or get a massage. But Josh is going to take her skydiving. She has mentioned that this is something that she had wanted to do. I don't think that she didn't think that he was taking her that seriously, but he did. And so that's what they're going to be doing. And we do see them jump out of the plane, and it looked like it was really fun and really exciting. They had a really good time. And if nothing else, even if they say no on decision day, at least they're going to have really fun memories of this experience. Later on, they're back at their apartment, and I think that their assignment or their task was to rewrite their wedding vows. So the first vows that they wrote and that they had recited at their actual wedding was when they didn't know each other. So you're writing these wedding vows to a stranger, and you're basically just presenting yourself. You're telling a lot about who you are for them to kind of get an idea of who you are, because y'all are strangers at the altar. It's not so much about the other person. So them rewriting their vows, it has a lot more to do with what they've learned about each other and how they feel about the other person. And I guess talking about what they see in their future or what they expect their future to hold now that you've been with your partner for about a month now and you know them a little bit better. So the second vows should have a lot more meaning after being together for a month. Now, when they sat down to get this done, Jaylen flew through hers. Okay, she flew through it. Josh struggled, on the other hand. So he put a lot of pressure on himself with this assignment for some reason. And because he couldn't get the words out right, he couldn't really express himself the way he wanted to. He ended up getting really annoyed and frustrated with himself. And he even said that he was embarrassed for himself. And when it came time to read their vows to each other, he didn't even want to read his. And it took him, he talks about how with the first vows he wrote, it took him 4 days. And that's why I guess they were so heartfelt and, there was a lot of meaning behind it. But he didn't know who Jaylen was at that time when he wrote these vows. He put a lot of thought into those vows, but he was writing to a stranger. Now that he does have an idea of who she is as a person and as a wife, the second vows, like I said, should have a lot more meaning and should be more directed at her or to her, or more directed towards them as a couple. And for whatever reason, he really struggled with this. And I have an idea why he struggled. I think that Josh is somewhat of a people pleaser. And I think that Josh is losing himself in this relationship. And he just does whatever he expects, whatever he thinks Jaylen expects him to do, or what he thinks he should do as a husband. And I don't think that we have really seen the real Josh yet. And I think this is the reason why he really struggled with these vows, because it was easier for him to write to a stranger, to write 4 whole paragraphs to a stranger, than it is to write 1 paragraph to Jaylen. And Jaylen was like so confused, like she didn't understand why he was struggling with this assignment. And he feels like the second vows won't live up to the first. And she said that the second vows would mean more to her than the first. And it doesn't matter what he writes or how it's written. It's just the fact that now he's writing something with her in mind. And he just refused to do it. And she says, you can write half a paragraph. You can write a sentence. It's going to mean more to me than the 4 paragraphs you wrote for our wedding. But he was really adamant about not reading these damn vows. So she says to him, she was like, well, I think you're being a little bit like over dramatic. And he was like, yeah, you're right. I am being over dramatic. Jaylen says that she just jumped out of a damn plane for him. So why can't he write a couple of words for her? And she also tells us that this is a side of Josh that she's never seen before. So later on that night, while they are getting ready for bed, Josh says that it was way too much pressure for him to adequately express himself in 20 minutes. And she felt like maybe he struggled because his feelings for her had changed. And he reassured her, no, it had nothing to do with my feelings for you. It was just a lot of pressure for me to write out these vows in the time that was given to us, I guess. So it had nothing to do with his feelings. She reassures him that she does understand and that he was being put on the spot and that, it's all good now. I'm still stuck on that. I'm glad that Jaylen moved on and she understood that he was, just feeling a lot of pressure because it was only 20 minutes to jot something down and he really couldn't. I'm still stuck on that because I think that he could have written something. He could have written something. He even compared writing down those vows to being in front of 10,000 people and having to give a speech or something. And I just didn't understand. Like, you've been with this woman for a month. Is there anything about her that you can say that you like, that you find interesting about her, that you find exciting about her? There's nothing you could have written just to say, you know what, we vibe together really well, we laugh together, we get along, we're very comfortable with one another, and I can't wait with what the future holds. And then you would have been done with it. Okay, and that would have been it. I don't know why he was, struggling and why he was like putting all this pressure on himself and trying to come up with this, masterpiece like the first set of vows. And the first set of vows took him 4 days. And he was like, it's just impossible for me to write in 20 minutes what I wrote before in 4 days. But once again, Josh, you're writing for a stranger. Then after that, there's like a big anniversary dinner for all the couples at Pat and Rhonda's house. And when they went around the table, all the couples are basically saying whether or not they said the words "I love you" to each other. And Josh and Jaylen, they were part of the group that have already said "I love you" to each other. And Josh talks about how, like, really early on, he had told Jaylen that he loved her. And I was thinking to myself, I don't see how at the honeymoon or that early on, I just don't see how you can say those words and actually mean them when this person is still a stranger to you. You can definitely have lust at first sight. I don't know if you can really have love at first sight like that. And now that I'm getting to know Josh a little bit more, I don't believe that when he said those words that he actually really meant them when he said them. I think he said them to please her, or he said them because he thought this is what I'm supposed to do to look like a good husband. Like, he's just going through the motions of what a good husband does, but I don't think he is really truly being himself. Even when Dr. Pia had come over and once he found out that Jaylen doesn't follow her exes, he automatically was like, oh, okay, I'm going to unfollow mine. And then with the whole post-nup situation where he was just like, oh, okay, she doesn't have to sign it. And it's like, are you really meaning what you're saying, or are you just saying things to look good and to impress her? So after that, they come home. We see them with the security camera inside the house. And they come home after hanging out with Josh's friends, and there's some type of issue going on between them. And what the issue is that while they were hanging out with Josh's friends, Jaylen found out that Josh had not unfollowed his ex, that him and his ex were still following each other because the ex was DMing him. And he was given some explanation, and I don't know if it was because he was lying and that's why his explanation wasn't making sense, or if it was because we weren't there, so we don't understand exactly what he's talking about. But the bottom line is, she finds out he didn't unfollow his ex, and she doesn't understand why he had to lie and say that he did when he didn't. And she basically says this is an unnecessary lie. And so now, my trust with him is like shaken a little bit. Yeah, it should be shaken because there was no need for him to say something like that. And I don't know how it came about when they were hanging out with his friends, what kind of conversations were going on that revealed. Oh, she did say that when they were talking about exes and following each other on social media. That's what the group was talking about. And then she said that when Josh mentioned how that he unfollowed his ex, it didn't make any sense to her, or something about what he was saying or how he was saying it kind of clued her off that he wasn't telling the truth. And lo and behold, he wasn't telling the truth. So I don't know exactly how that played out. What I do know is that she finds out he didn't unfollow his ex, and she doesn't understand why he lied about it. And I hope he doesn't make it an issue about the fact that he's still following the ex. And I hope he understands that the issue is you lied about unfollowing her. If you still wanted to follow each other and it's like a completely platonic relationship and she had nothing to worry about, then why didn't you just tell her, hey, it's cool for me and my ex to follow each other because we're still friends. She's still a really good friend of mine. There are no romantic feelings there anymore. There's no sexual attraction there anymore. It's completely platonic. And so, yeah, I don't have an issue with me following my ex. And I wouldn't have an issue with you following your ex. And if she doesn't agree with that or she doesn't like that, then y'all deal with that however y'all need to deal with it. But you shouldn't have to lie about it. So he really messed up with that one. Let's move on to Megan and Derek. So once again, we are at the same place that we were the last time, where they came back from the girls' night and guys' night, and Megan was still mad about the fact that Derek had brought up family planning only because his friend had mentioned it when he was hanging out with his friend. And they had a big argument about that, and that's where we're still at. So once again, well, they're out of the bedroom now, because the last time that we saw them, production was there, obviously, and Megan didn't want to talk about this in front of production, so they went into the bedroom, but we could still hear them. And her whole issue was him not apologizing for his part in that argument when he asked her about, do you want to have kids? What is this going to look like for us? And she was mad at him because he only brought it up because his friend had brought it up to him, and she wanted him to bring it up on his own, something so stupid and silly and childish. So that's what they were arguing about. So they're out of the bedroom, they're in the kitchen now. And once again, Derek apologizes to Megan. And he can't even apologize correctly to her. I'm not saying he did. He did apologize correctly, but in her eyes, it wasn't good enough. So he tells her, I apologize for triggering you. And then she was upset because he said that. And she was like, that's not a real apology. Him saying that triggered her because she was like, that's not good enough for you to say that I apologize that I triggered you. So he tries again and he says, well, in general, I'm sorry. He's like, I'm just going to cover all my bases and say, in general, I'm sorry for everything that I've ever done since the day I was born. So they talk about what he can do to make her feel safe. And as they're talking, he's like rubbing on her wrist. And she says, well, that's what she needs. Okay. She needs, I don't know what, that type of soothing. That way, that particular way of him comforting her by like caressing her wrist or some type of physical touch. I don't know. But she says that's what she needs and that's what's going to work for her. Megan tells us that Derek has a way of de-escalating the situation and calming her down. But there's no talk about what she can do to make him feel safe. They didn't talk about what she needed to do to change. They didn't talk about her emotional outburst, her being completely irrational over things that are so simple and that could easily be resolved. They didn't talk about that at all. They just talked about him being in the wrong, him having to apologize, and what he needs to do to change to make her feel better, which I thought this whole thing was like, it was so like the Twilight Zone. It was just so upside down and screwed up. So he tells her how much he cares about her and how he is going to do better. Once again, no mention of what she needs to do to be better. Megan and Derek go to see Megan's parents. They go to Megan's parents' house. So this is the first time that we see Megan's father, because remember, he was not at the wedding. So we meet Megan's father for the very first time, and they all sit outside for dinner, and the conversation quickly goes to children. Megan and Derek, when are they going to have kids? How many kids are they going to have? And Derek said that he would like to have 3 kids, which he's already mentioned that to Megan before. This is nothing new to her. And then Megan tells us in her confessional that it's easy for him to say that he wants 3 kids because he's not going to be the one carrying them and delivering them. No duh. But we know that Megan has this fear of giving birth and labor and delivery and all of that. So the family visit or the home visit went well. Her family liked him. He liked her family. That went well. So now they're back at their apartment and they're talking about babies again. They talk about babies a whole lot. Okay, they talk about babies a whole lot. So Derek says that he wants to start trying to have children in the summer or fall, and Megan agreed. And I was kind of shocked because I thought she was going to say, "No, no, 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 that's too soon. We need to, wait a little bit longer." But she was like, "No, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's try having babies in the summer or fall." Then he ups it. And he goes, "Well, what about having a baby in December?" Because I think her mother had mentioned something about wanting a December grandbaby. And he goes, "Well, what about if we try a little bit earlier and try to shoot for December, a December baby?" And she was okay with that too. So this has to be the couple that end up being pregnant, that end up getting pregnant on the show. It has to be them. They're celebrating their 1 month anniversary. They're at a vineyard, and while they're drinking wine, Derek tells her that he has very strong feelings for her and that he wants to keep things going between them. I'm assuming he meant, after decision day, he wants them to continue. She responded by saying that for whatever reason, she felt really awkward at that moment. So then, but she does have feelings for him though, because at one of her confessionals, she tells us that she's feeling things that she never felt before towards Derek, but she is afraid of getting hurt. And she had told us before in a previous episode that she is falling, she's falling for Derek, and her feelings are just as strong. So she's definitely falling for him too. And they go inside and they get their 1 month anniversary gift from the show. And it's like their vows put in frames and a video of their wedding. So they sit back and they watch the wedding. And she's sitting on his lap. So they're looking very romantic. They're all snuggled up together and they're watching this wedding video and, making commentary over it. And she's kissing him. And like I said, it was a very romantic moment, a very sweet moment. And I guess she got caught up in the emotions of it all, watching the wedding video, being so close to him telling her that he wants to continue things with her, that he feels very strongly for her. So she got caught up in the moment and she told him, "I love you." And he didn't say it back. So when the producers are talking to her one-on-one, they're like, "Well, how did you feel about him not saying 'I love you' back after you told him 'I love you'?" or something like that. And she acted like she didn't even remember saying "I love you," but she was just, I mean, it was obvious that she remembered, but she didn't want to talk about it. I guess she felt embarrassed that he didn't say the same thing back. So she didn't really want to talk about it. And she was like, "Well, you need to talk to him about that." So we're kind of like at this situation now where she has said to him, "I love you." He hasn't said it back. He did tell us that he does have strong feelings for her and that for him, it takes a little bit longer to say "I love you" to a partner, but it's definitely in the works. It's not like he doesn't have those feelings or won't have those feelings. Everything is in place. He's just waiting for the right time to tell her. Now, at Pat and Rhonda's anniversary dinner, when they were going around the table and all the couples were mentioning whether or not they've said "I love you" to each other, when it came to their turn, what was said? When it came to their turn, I think, let me get to that part because I wrote those notes down. When it came to their turn about whether or not they said "I love you," Derek says that he's on the path to that. When they asked him, "Have you said 'I love you' to Megan?" And he goes, "Well, I'm on the path to that." And then everybody looks at Megan for her response, and she goes, "Same." And that was the end of it. Nothing else was said after that. So she didn't say that she had already told him that she loved him. She didn't mention that. He didn't mention that because he knows better. And so yeah, that's where they ended it. They didn't want to say anything else after that. And I know that, and I'm like, well, not Will, Derek, you know how she is. You know how she just, pops off. Like, why wouldn't you just say it back? If you know that you're going to eventually say it, why wouldn't you just say it back to avoid an argument? And I understand the whole thing about saying it when you don't mean it because you want it to be real and you want it to be natural and you don't want it to be just an automatic response to someone saying it to you. I totally get that. But the fact that you didn't say it at all, and then they're at this anniversary dinner where most of the couples are talking about how they've already said it to each other, and she said it to him, but he didn't reciprocate. I was like, we gotta pray. We gotta pray for Derek and hope that she didn't hurt him too bad. Let's move on to Britney and Will. So for their 1 month anniversary, Will takes her wrestling because she's a really big fan of wrestling. So they go to this gym or whatever, and somehow or another, they arranged it for retired WWE wrestler Mark Henry to show up and to like show them some wrestling moves. And so Britney was super excited to meet Mark Henry. She said this was her favorite wrestler, I think. She's like a really big fan of him. And so that was really exciting. So he showed them a couple of moves, and then they got into the ring and they practiced those moves on each other. And it seemed like they had a really good time. I can't believe that she wrestled with those nails. So after the wrestling, they're talking, and Brittany talks about how they're progressing very well and that they should look towards the future. And she says for her, there is no doubt. And the way she talks, like she doesn't, like when she said, we need to look towards the future. Like, what do you mean by that? You mean, and I understand that she means beyond decision day, that she sees a future with them beyond decision day, but I wish that she would have said that. And then when she said that for her, there is no doubt. Okay, what do you mean by that? Like, there is no doubt that you love him. There is no doubt that you're going to choose him. Like, I wish she just would have said more, but whatever. So she says, well, for me, there is no doubt. She tells him, she goes, well, I hope that there's no doubt for you either. And Will says, well, this is the best time. This is the best place that we've been so far in this process, but things can change over time. She says that response makes it seem like he doesn't know. She says with that response, I don't know if you feel like I'm your person. That's what she says. After he said, things can change. We're doing really great right now, but things can change. And then she goes, well, if you're going to say that, I'm not so sure if you see me as your person. Then he looked at her like really confused, like, why would you say that? And then she says, I don't think you feel the same things that I feel. So I guess what she means is I have real feelings for you, but I don't think you have, real feelings for me, or I feel strongly for you. You don't feel strongly for me, or I love you, but maybe you don't love me. I just wish that she would have gone into more detail with what she was saying and explained herself a lot better. But I know that she's hesitant. She wants to let him know. She's kind of like testing the waters. Like she's letting him know, kind of, sort of, like, I'm digging you, I'm feeling you. And she wants to see if he's going to reciprocate and say the same thing. But he didn't. So she doesn't want to come right out and say, I love you, Will, I love you, and I want to be with you, and I'm going to say yes on decision day, and I want us to be married forever. She doesn't want to be that vulnerable because he may not feel the same, but she wants to know how he's feeling because I guess he really doesn't express it enough. But he did say in his confessional that he cares for her a lot. He has very strong feelings for her. He has love for her, but he's not at that point to say that he's in love with her. But that's where he wants to be. He wants to be at that point where he can say, I love you, and mean it. Now, at Pat and Rhonda's anniversary dinner, once again, when they were going around the table talking about, whether or not they said I love you to each other, when it came to Derek and, no, Derek, I don't know why I keep on changing their names. When it came to Britney and Will, they asked, well, have you said it to Britney? And he was like, I definitely haven't said it. And everybody laughed when he said that because it was kind of unexpected that he would have said it like so strongly like that. It was like, oh, I definitely haven't said it. And then he says that if it's said too soon, it can be manipulative. And I'm glad he said that because that's how I feel. If these couples say it so early on, it could be like a form of manipulation where you're trying to manipulate the other person to feel the way you feel. But you probably don't really feel love for that person. But you want them to feel the same for you, or you want them to like you, or, it's a way to get them to like you when you already like them. I don't really know, but I do understand where he's coming from when he said that. If it's not genuine and you're saying it, you're probably saying it because you're trying to somehow convince the other person that they should feel the same way. And I see this in Josh, and I see this in Chad. So he gives this example about, if his partner is bald on chemo and their body's falling apart, he wants to be sure that he still has real love for them. So no matter what happens, he wants to make sure that that love is going to be everlasting. And Megan says something like, well, that is such a Will answer. And I don't know what she meant by that. I guess because Will talks very vaguely, or he does this double talk, this double speech, where you don't really know exactly what he's saying. He's saying a whole lot of words, but you don't really know what he's saying. From what I could gather, it seems like he was trying to say, when I say it, I want to mean it. I want to truly, truly mean it. And Brittany, she really didn't care for that answer. You could tell that she really didn't care for that answer, but she was just going to play along because I think he was making some valid points. Let's move on to Rhonda and Pat, I think, is who I want to talk about next. So when it comes to Rhonda and Pat, they're celebrating their 1 month anniversary about watching a space launch because Pat used to work for NASA, so he's like a space nerd. And so they got up real early to watch the rocket take off or the rocket launch. And so that's how they celebrated their 1 month anniversary. And even though there could have been a million other ways that Rhonda wanted to celebrate their 1 month anniversary, she shared this with him because it was very important for him and it was exciting for him. So she decided to go along and join him. And she was just as enthusiastic as he was about the space launch. So at the anniversary dinner that they hosted, they didn't even talk about whether or not they said I love you to each other. After that, we see them like at a music festival. And a song is playing that Rhonda is really connecting with. It's like one of her favorite songs. She's dancing, it's really affecting her, this song. And when the song ends, she tells Pat that this song is really important to me because when I was going through a very difficult time in my life, this song helped me get through it. And she even gets emotional while she's explaining why this song means a lot to her. She's crying, she's emotional, and she talks about this music festival and listening to all this great music is like her happy place. And then he tells her something like, well, this really isn't my happy place. The mountains are my happy place. And when she was talking about the song, he tells her something about well, I have a different interpretation of the song. And then he talks about what the song means to him. So once again, he turns the conversation back on himself, and it frustrates the hell out of Rhonda that she ends up walking away from him at this festival. And she tells us how she feels like that they are regressing. Like a month later, they're actually moving backwards instead of forwards because once again, she's sharing a very important moment in her life. And she was expecting him to ask questions about why this song means so much to her, like what was going on in her, whatever. She wanted him to be more interested in what she just said because it was very, very monumental to her because she's crying, she's getting emotional. And he just basically overlooked all of that and talked about what the song meant to him. So y'all, we got to pray for them too. We got to pray that Rhonda doesn't go too damn hard on Pat because Rhonda can really unleash the dragon when she gets upset. Let's get into Belinda and Chad. So Chad comes home with yet more flowers. The last time that we saw Belinda and Chad, he bought flowers for her for no reason. He's coming home from work with a bouquet of flowers. And this is probably more meaning because it's their 1 month anniversary, because she asked him, oh, what are these for? And he goes, oh, because I love you, because you're beautiful, and because it's our 1 month anniversary. So Belinda is considering changing her last name to his last name. And Belinda is excited about changing her last name, in fact. And she said that it's very romantic when a man wants to give you his last name. So I got to get real technical here. I can't help myself. I try to control myself, but I can't. When a woman takes on a man's last name, to me, it's not him giving her his last name, because upon the act of marriage, once the marriage is official, the licenses have been processed or whatever, and y'all are officially legally married, the act of getting married is what changes the name. It's not like he's giving you the name or giving you permission to take his name. Whether he wants you to take his name or not, you can take his name, because the act of getting married allows you to change your name. Because when you change your driver's license and social security, one of the first things that they want you to show them is your marriage license, to show that your name has legally changed. So the man really has no active role in whether or not the woman changes her name. It's the act of getting married that changes her name. I'm so sorry that I got real technical with that, but y'all, I couldn't control it. So they're sharing a moment together, and she asks Chad if he's sure that he wants her to take his name. And he's like, of course. He says, you're my wife and I'm not ever leaving you. Chad tells us that Belinda is the perfect person for him and that she makes him feel comfortable. And at the anniversary dinner at Pat and Rhonda's house, of course, he talked about how he said, I love you to Belinda very early on in their relationship. And when Josh and Jaylen are talking about how well things are going for them, this is before the whole exes unfollowing each other on social media. It was before that. So when Josh and Jaylen are talking about how well they're doing in their relationship, Chad comes in and says, yeah, and don't ever get complacent. I guess he was talking to Derek. He was like, and don't ever get complacent. And he tells Josh, he was talking to Josh. Did I say Derek? He was talking to Josh. He tells him, don't ever get complacent. And he tells him, bring flowers. Bring her flowers every day. I love flowers too, just like the next person. I do. I adore flowers. But honey, I can't do flowers every single day. You're going to have my house looking like a damn nursery. Can you bring me a teddy bear? Can you bring me a box of chocolate? Can you bring me a trinket? You know, there's other ways to show love. I don't know if in his past relationship, his wife was like, and you never bring me flowers. And now he's like on flower overload. I don't know if that's what's going on, because a lot of the things that Chad does makes me think that he's doing them because he didn't do them before. And some ex-wife pointed out how he doesn't do this and he doesn't do that. And you don't compliment me and you don't call me beautiful. And now he's like doing all of that to Belinda, but it's like overload. It's like too much. You know, flowers every day, every other minute. You're beautiful. You're so beautiful. And I'm thinking if he's doing all of this because he didn't do them in the past, and that's why he lost his wives in the past. And he's like, I ain't losing this one. I learned my lesson from past relationships. So in that sense, it's a good thing, right? That he learned his lessons. But how genuine is it? Chad is another person. Like, I don't think we've seen the real Chad. I think we got a glimpse of the real Chad when he got mad at production for trying to help him find his words when he was supposed to express to Belinda how he feels about her when they had that dinner in Panama. I think it was their last night in Panama. And they were just trying to help him move it along a little bit. And he got frustrated with them. They ended up leaving. That was a glimpse of the real Chad. Now, they're still in their honeymoon phase, Belinda and Chad. But I think Chad may have a temper. I think he may have a really ugly, ugly temper. And I don't think Belinda knows what she's in for. I think Belinda's ex-husband, Jaylen's father, I don't think he was as romantic as Chad. And I think that she's kind of getting caught up in how Chad is showering her with compliments and flowers and all this and that. But I don't think Belinda has seen the real Chad yet. Okay? That's just my personal opinion. Thank you so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it on your way out. Please don't forget to rate the video. If you like this content, subscribe to my channel, and I'll definitely talk to you later. Bye.